Welcome back to Off Ball Takes. This is your host, Yarby Laws, and these are my co-hosts.
Christopher Wells.
Top notch.
We appreciate all the support on our recent content. And before we do get started, please don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the OBT Podcast for more content and updates.
Yep, we're back at it here again with another episode. And for today's episode, the first thing that we're going to talk about is some first-time All-Stars, right? Where you got some guys around the league that have been playing at a pretty high level this year, and we think they deserve some recognition. So I'll start off with the first name, and this one, say, is a pretty obvious one. We'll start off in the East with Jalen Johnson, right? Who might be the guy now in Atlanta, considering that Trae Young is in some trade rumors now. He's averaging 24, 10, and 8, 53 from the field, 37 from three. From 2-point range, right? He is shooting 58%. And now he's kind of coming to his own where he's playing borderline All NBA level, right? I don't know if he'll get in, but just the level he's playing at. Unfortunately, the Hawks have not been great this season. They've been one of the more disappointing teams, right? I don't know if they'll hit the over. They've had some injuries, right? Like Porzingis has been ill, and then Trae Young has been hurt, and unfortunately he came back and didn't really help them. Although they were starting to trend downwards anyways. But he's been one of the lone bright spots for them in terms of the things he can do on both ends of the floor. And there are stretches now where now that he's got a bigger offensive responsibility, sometimes his defense may come and go. But just overall, just the fact that Atlanta can say, we have a guy on our team that on any given night could drop 30, 12, and 12 or anything like that. You don't have a lot of players in the league that can do things like that while still being able to shoot. And now that he's got, a higher usage, I want to see more of this. I want to see what the Hawks do. What do they do with Trae Young? Do they trade him? He's been in a lot of rumors. Do they keep him? But either way, like Jalen Johnson now has become a foundational building block for this team. And I think he's the obvious choice for first-time All-Star.
Yeah, for sure. Jalen Johnson's a dog. I think we've been singing his praises, pretty much since he's broken out, even starting last year, right? But unfortunately got injured. But, he's picked up from where he left off this last year. But I think one of the problems that I do have with his game, and it's not really a knock, but it's the defense. I don't know what really kind of happened, kind of fell off a cliff, but that wouldn't impact, what he does on the offensive end. And I think that's the point, right? You have so much offensive output from this guy, the ball's in his hands, and, he can pretty much take care of business at all three levels, and also be a productive playmaker as well. So, yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Johnson is an all-star. That's cool, but I'm going to go with another player who it might be tough for him to get in, but there might be a good chance he does put replacements. Keontae George. I mean, Keontae George has been playing out amazing for this Utah Jazz team, right? Like, you're thinking you're coming into the year with one all-star. There's a good chance you have two all-stars, and you kind of think a little bit different, right? Like, this is the year you try to see what type of players you have because they're in that rebuilding phase, But it looks like they're not even trying to get that top pick no more, right? They're looks like they're winning games where they can, get into the top 10 and possibly in the plane due to, Keontae George. I mean, the dude's averaging 25 points a game, 45% from the field, 37% from the 3-point line, 90% from the free throw line, 4 rebounds, 7 assists. I mean, you wouldn't expect this from Keontae George a lot the season before. Like, he had good moments, but like a lot of inconsistencies last year. So you could tell he went into the lab, and just started hooping for real. So I think they got two building blocks in George and Laurie Marketing. And, we'll see what happens with that. But the numbers, I mean, just look at this, like 39 points, 37, and it's all efficient. 11 for 20, 12 for 20. He's also being clutch. Like, he has some big shots down the stretch to win this team some games. You love to see it. The dude's only 22 years old at that. So he's only going to get better. And you could tell, like, when he's not playing, this team's obviously not as good as they were. I'm seeing Isaiah Collier play, and he's just not a basketball player. You know what I mean? Like, just get him off that team. He's not it. But shout out to Keontae George, man. He should definitely be in this All-Star game. If he's not voted in, he's definitely going to be an alternate for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one where, you look at the jump for him and a lot of it really comes down to, so he's shooting threes a little bit better, right? He was 33, 34%, 37%, but it's that 2-point percentage, right? He was 46%, 45%. I remember a year before that, when we were talking about him, it was always like when he drives to the basket, you could tell he wasn't that strong. So it felt like that there's a lot of drives where he's just kind of trying to finish around people and kind of forcing a lot of these tough shots. And you can tell that he has gotten a lot stronger now. He's a lot more comfortable around the rim and inside the 3-point line. And that's what you need if you're going to be, like an all-star level guard. And he's now played his way into, oh yeah, this is a foundational piece for Utah. And like you said, top notch. Like you look at the Jazz, and like obviously they'll have games where they sit guys, but at least now you can say we have a group of guys that we actually feel pretty comfortable potentially building around. Because we were all talking about Markkinen as a potential trade candidate, but now if you're Utah, do you decide we got Keontae George, we got Lauri Markkinen, probably re-sign Walker Kessler. Maybe one of these other guys gets better or whatever. Then you just check ball and kind of see what you do. But yeah, I think George, now that Utah has like a really good option at the guard spot, like, now you just kind of see what else you got, because already have Ace Bailey and some of these other players, although a couple of them haven't worked out. But George's leap has been one of the more surprising ones, because I remember most people were super high on him in the draft, and he played really well in summer league. We saw it in person when we went to Vegas, but just like now the additional uh elements of his game that he's added, it's really cool to see, because I didn't know if he could get there, because year two, it looked kind of rough, where it's like, okay, he looks like mostly the same guy from a year before, and now he's I don't want to say completely different, but now he's just added parts of his game where he's so much more of a real guy you can build around now. So I think he's one of those guys where I think he's probably more likely to be an injury replacement. Like I think like a Jalen Johnson could just get in outright. I don't, maybe not as a starter, but as a reserve. But I think George may have to be an injury replacement. But we know there's guys injured, which we'll talk about soon. So I think he's definitely one of those guys. Yeah. So I guess now we can move on to another one. We'll go back to the East. Detroit
Wait,
Pistons. Yeah.
can I say something real quick? Like
Yeah.
the problem with him last year, right? Like, and he's easily the most improved player. The reason why I say that is like when you look at it, right? He's averaging 25 points a game. The year before, averaged 17. Field goal percentage went up 7%. Right, 3-point percentage went up 3%. Free throws went up 9%. Rebounds went up like 0.5. Assists went up almost 2. That's what you call most improved. Like I think people tend to forget of what the most or whatever that most improved player award. People tend to forget. Like I'm seeing stars winning. I'm like, how's a star winning the most improved player? We already know you're good, right? This is what with Keontae George, that's that leap. So I think he's going to be coming away with some hardware for sure this year.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the free throws too, because like you said, now he's at 7 free throws a game, and that goes into the added strength and the ability to play through contact and not just kind of like I said, force up shots around guys. So he's definitely one of the most improved players around the league for sure. And like I said, now we'll move back to the Eastern Conference. Go to the Detroit Pistons. And we're gonna bring up Jalen Duren, right? Because Cade Cunningham was already an All-Star, so we don't have to mention him. But Jalen Duren, it's funny because this past off season, before the season started, we did an episode where we were trying to talk about and cover which guys were going to get extensions and which guys were going to go into the season without a new contract. And one of the guys that we didn't think was going to get re-signed was Jalen Duren, because even though we liked him as a player, we most of what we saw in terms of the best version of him was the second half of last season, right, where the Pistons make the playoffs and then he averages a double-double. But this year he's expanded his game to another level. Now he's basically a 20 and 10 guy every night. The face-up game, right? He's not just like a lob threat, rim running big. Like he actually has some real skill. I still remember when we saw him in Vegas, right? And we saw these possessions where he's putting the ball on the floor, dribbling the ball, driving to the basket. And it was just it was interesting, right? Because his front court mate was James Wiseman, right? Because at that time they were doing this double big man lineup with him and Wiseman, right? Neither guy is really a 3-point shooter. And that work has really paid off. Where just now his decision making, his short roll passing, it adds another element to Detroit offensively, where offensively they're more of a defense first team, points in the paint on offense, right? But he's a big part of that 2-man game, the pick and roll duo. And I just think, based off of how he's played, he's now 100% a keeper in Detroit. Because at one time it's like, all right, is he there? Is he going to stay there? Is it going to be Ivy? Do they pick one or the other? Do they not even keep both? Right? Because they didn't re-sign Ivy either. But Duren's a keeper, and he's one of the big parts, other than Cade, as to why the Pistons have the #1 record in the Eastern Conference. Now it's gotten closer, but just the fact that this was a team that I think most people expected to take a step back, his progression into a first-time All-Star is one of the biggest reasons why they've not only not taken a step back, they've taken a step forward, and with some moves could potentially, inch themselves even closer to, oh, this team might actually be able to win the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I agree with you for sure. I think he's a walking double double for sure. We all know that. But offensively, right, is where he's taken a leap. Right, there's more skill involved in terms of what he's been doing. And even defensively, I know it probably won't show up a lot in the box score, but he is having a lot better. I guess a better defensive presence this year than last year. Right, I think he's averaging like around a block and a steal a game. So the leap there has definitely I think translated to the win column, and I think that's all you could really ask for in a first-time All-Star, right? And they're number one in the Eastern Conference, so I think realistically they'd have to have two because we all know Cade is going to be one. So I think Jalen Duren is definitely the next man up.
I'll be honest with you, man. I think he's an all-star. I just the last game that I watched him play, he was awful. It was against the Miami Heat, where he was just looking goofy out there. I mean, this dude was taking like hook shots and random doing dumb stuff. So like when watching that, just like, yo, this dude's awful. But like, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, yo, I watch a lot of Duran. I watch a few games of him and stuff. It's just that game that I seen specifically. I'm just like, this is what you call an all-star over here. But I give it to him though, right? He's going to give you 19 and 10, 20 and 10, whatever you want to call it. He's doing his thing. I think a nice lob threat for Cade. Um, and I think with the injury, it's unfortunate, right? He's dealing with an ankle injury right now. I don't think it's going to take him out for too long. But that would be awful for him because being the first time All Star, you want to be there out playing, right? Like it's not like you're a vet. You've been here every year. First time All Star, you want to have fun, enjoy it. So hopefully that injury doesn't keep him out for too long. But yeah, good for the Pistons. I also love their backup big, even though it's just off topic. But I think Beef Stew, Isaiah Stewart's a dog over there too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Now we'll move on back over to the Western Conference and we'll move on to the Denver Nuggets. And I think, we've talked about him a lot over the last several seasons, and he's a guy where we know come playoff time, he looks like an all NBA guy, but he's never been an all-star. But I think this year he's gonna crack the first time all-star spot, and that's Jamal Murray. Just the fact that, this season there was a lot of talk, right, about how he needs to be in better shape, right? He's a guy where why do you not look the same in the regular season as you do in the postseason, right? Because if you were that guy, Denver would look like they're an even more dominant team. There's other factors at play, but just 25 points a game, 7 assists, 48 from the field, 45% from three on nearly 8 3-point attempts a game. So just offensively, the level he's playing at is pretty much ideal for what Denver wants to do. And before all the injuries that they've had, they were the number one offense in the league, right? They were, I think, statistically the number one offensive rating in NBA history, right? And he has a big part to do with that. Of course, Jokic is the engine of the team, but Jamal Murray, just based off the level that he's played, and he's going to have to continue to do this while, Denver, obviously now we'll talk about it soon, right? But they're going through a lot of injuries. So just overall, so far, the level he's played at this season, I think he's going to make it. He probably won't be, again, probably won't be a starter, but I think he'll be on the reserve list or worst case scenario, an injury replacement. But I just think as long as Denver is in the playoff mix, like he's going to be one of those guys. Like I don't see him missing out this time. This is his year.
Yeah, I mean, he should definitely be an All Star this year. I mean, he's just been so good, and it's not funny, but it is because like Jokic is kind of used to not having his running mate, and this is the first year like you kind of see Jamal Murray not having his running mate, and he's just playing amazing. All right, give it credit. I don't really have much to say about him because Jamal Murray is just one of those underrated dogs. Every year he comes out and competes. He shows up when it matters, and that's in the playoffs. A lot of people are asking your guards to step up in the playoffs, and they can't. Jamal Murray has big moments all the time, but he was hooping. I mean, last game had 34 points. I think he is dealing with another injury though, so I think it's minor, but he did get injured last game, I believe. But yeah, he's good though. He's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the wild thing about it is that like he already has a championship and he's already, kind of discussed as a good point guard, right? But he had never really been in the conversation of, oh, can this guy be, an all-star, right? Just because his regular season numbers not bad, right? But especially given how many guards we normally have in the Western Conference, it's really hard to get on that list, right? And now, like I said, I think this is going to be his first year that he gets in. And I guess now we'll stick with the Western Conference and we'll move down a little bit um, to the lower end of that play-in spot. And there's a guy in Portland, right, that I think at this point everybody knows who we're talking about. That's Denny Avdia, right, former Wizard, right. This was a guy where when he was drafted, I mean, there were people that were pretty high on him, but I don't necessarily think that people expected this version of him, where he's averaging 25, 7, and 7, 47 from the field, 36 from three. He's getting to the free throw line 10 times a game, right? I think he's the league leader in free throw attempts per game. Uh Super active, right? Nicknamed Turbo, right? Just because of his activity. And just with the way that Portland's been this year, right? They've basically played most of the season with no point guard, right? Because Scoot Henderson has not played at all. Drew Holiday played to begin the season, actually played well, and then got hurt, right? So it's kind of been basically him and Shaden Sharp, I guess Caleb Love off the bench, where they're just kind of taking turns bringing the ball up. But Abdia is the driver of the offense, literally, in terms of getting to the line. So just the Swiss Army knife all around aspect of his play. Again, we all liked him and thought he was a good player, but just the fact that he's playing at this level and Portland, if they can just get healthy, get their guards back, like they have a solid group of players around there, right? The defense hasn't necessarily been quite at the level that it was the second half of last season, but as of right now, they're still hanging around, right? Like they're still competing for that play-in spot. They're currently 10th in the Western Conference, so maybe there's a chance that they could sneak in uh, if these other guards come back. But just the level that he's played at just is kind of wild to see, right? Where it's like you almost kind of wonder, like, could he have been this if he was in Washington, or is this just a byproduct of the team around him, players around him? It's crazy.
Yeah. As a Wizards fan, this one kind of stings a little bit. I know this was kind of like a polarizing trade when we did trade him away, but in my opinion, I don't think he ever really would have been able to become the player that he is in Portland right now if he was on Washington, right? And it's funny because a lot of Washington fans really, really, really like begged for the organization to quite literally do what Portland is doing, right? Give him the opportunity, put the ball in his hands, let him kind of play the one, let him dictate, the offense and what goes on a night to night basis. But that's kind of what happens, right? Players go to different teams and they flourish. And I think, this was the best thing for his career because he's putting up insane quiet numbers, right? Like, and it's not really talked about, unfortunately. But yeah, career year for him. And even like the 3-point percentage, right? Like it's pretty cool to see him, taking a pretty high volume of threes and actually hitting a decent clip from there. And he's just a do it all guy, and his defense is good too, right? So I think this is the true version of what Avdia was probably supposed to be, and he's a great point forward. And I think Portland is perfect for him. And yeah, he's deserved first time All Star.
Yeah, I agree. I also think going back to the East, on my Miami Heat, Norman Powell's a first time All Star. I think last year before he got hurt, he was lead that Clippers team. Like that's the only reason why that team was, in that playoff run because Kawhi Leonard was hurt and Norman Powell and James Harden was doing their thing, right? And then Norman Powell dealt with an injury, Kawhi came back. But this year with Miami, no Tyler Hero, no problem, right? In their times, they didn't have no Bam Adebayo. The dude's giving you 24 points a game, 48% from the field, 40% from the 3-point line, 87% from the free throw line, right? I mean, he's doing everything that you would ask for, right? He pretty much got traded to the Miami Heat for scraps. Like this was not like a big trade or anything. He's replacing Tyler Hero. I'm actually glad so because they can't stand Tyler. I think Tyler's a scrub. But anyways, Norman's doing his thing, man, and I think this is the first time he should get acknowledged to be an All-Star game, man. I really do. I think the last 2 years he just has been improving. One of those top shooters in the league. He can get to the rim, draw fouls, do whatever it takes. And people might not agree, but I think he's the number one player on the Miami Heat right now.
Yeah, I mean he's been playing at a level where I mean at this point, it's hard to deny, right? Where it's like last year he had a chance to be an All Star, but with the way the Eastern Conference is shaped up this year, like because there are guys where like say Darius Garland, right? Like he was an All Star before, probably won't get in this year just because he's been playing better as of late, but I don't think he's going to be able to get in this year,
No.
right? Orlando, right? Like they have some good players, and they could probably get some of those guys on the All Star team. But just like in general, with the way that the East is shaped up, I think he'll get in. I don't think he'll start, but I think he'll probably be a reserve, maybe an injury replacement, but I think he'll be on there this year. And he has played well, right? And like when you look at the Heat, like they're in, the mix, right? So they're not in the bottom of the Eastern Conference, right? Like they're still, in the upper half of the East. So I think he's gonna get in. I mean, you watch the Heat more than I do, right? Like I assume that Bam was still kind of the best player on the team, but
Yeah,
you don't think
Bam,
so?
Bam's in trade rumors. That's how bad he's been. He's been awful. Bam Adebayo is not an all-star this year at all. Like he's been horrendous. Like the dude is trash. But I don't want to get into that. But I'm looking at the East, right? If you go Detroit, they have Cade and Duran, right? You go Knicks, you most likely go Brunson and Cat, right? Boston, you probably just go Jaylen Brown. Toronto, who do you go? Brandon Ingram? Do they have a second player? Philly, you probably go with what, Tyrese Maxey. I don't think Joel gets it just due to it. You go Donovan Mitchell for Cleveland. Magic, I think it's a hot take. I don't think Paul or Franz deserve to be in an All-Star game, to be honest with you. Then you just look at the Miami Heat. It's Norman Powell. You're not going to go any and Jalen Johnson and Giannis, but those are injury pieces, and you know what I mean. So like, Norman Powell is easily an All-Star this year, easily, no question, doubt.
Yeah, I think Toronto is kind of an interesting one. And again, like for some of these aren't first time All Stars, right? So, and obviously we'll have our All Star list as we get closer to All Star weekend. I do think that some of those guys will get in. I think the Wagner one is tough because of the injuries, right? Like I think he's probably missed too many games to where he's just probably not going to get in. And then there's other guys where it's like, like the Chicago Bulls, where another guy who probably would have been a first time All Star had he not gotten hurt, right? Like Josh Giddey, right? Like he was playing at a level before he got hurt where you look at his numbers, he's putting up what 19, 9, and 9, right? But unfortunately, now he's hurt. He's going to be out for a while. I think he's supposed to be out for a few weeks, so he could be back by the time you get to late January. But with the amount of time he's missed, he may. I don't know. I don't know if he'll get in. I think if he had stayed healthy, I think he would have been a first time All Star. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think so. I think that makes sense.
I think I think East is goofy. I don't think the East like the East. They got a goofy All Stars over there, dog. I'll be honest with you. Like I think their best player is Giannis, and he probably won't even play in the All Star game, right? Like I just think like you're gonna see a lot of replacements. You're gonna see some people that are gonna be like, "Huh? He's in the All Star game." I think that's what
Right.
the East is coming up to, right? Just because like the Garlands are not gonna make it, right? The Paulos or Franz probably won't make it.
Yeah, it's a weak year.
Yeah, it's a weak year, right? Joel, like I don't think if he does make, he probably won't play, right?
He's
Like
been playing better as of late, just like Paolo. It's just a matter of will they get in as reserves. They're not going to get in as starters.
yeah, well, even then, I wouldn't even play Joel in the All Star game.
Me
He
neither.
just can't.
Yeah.
He just can't. Right? Like he's been hoping, but you need his body. He just can't play extra basketball. So that's what I'm saying. Like the East is just kind of weak, and I think we can go into. I think we can go to the next one, who I think could be an All Star. I don't know if you want to talk about it, Khristopher from the Nets.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're pretty much in the honorable mention section right now. And yeah, you mentioned the Brooklyn Nets. I guess we got to talk about him, right? Mr. Podcast Man of the Summer, Michael Porter Jr. for the Brooklyn Nets, averaging 26, 7.5, 3 assists a game. Now he's played himself into the level of wait, could teams actually want to acquire him at the deadline because he could be a potentially very impactful player. The Brooklyn Nets honestly have been better than anticipated. I'm pretty sure going into the season, I believe we took the under on the Brooklyn Nets, and it was very low. I believe it was around 18 games or so, and they're at 10 wins. So, I mean, they've lost 3 in a row. You never know. They'll probably turn on the tank button at some point. But just in general, part of the reason why they've won more games than expected is because of Michael Porter Jr. Now, credit to their young players. They've also played very well, too. He's another guy where, like you mentioned, because it's going to be a really weird year for the Eastern Conference, he could get in. He won't start, I don't think, but I think he could easily get in as a reserve or as an injury replacement. And I mean, he's played very well. And the All Star discussion is weird, right? Because, sometimes people will say that a player can't get into the All Star game because the team stinks, right? Where it's like, oh, your team is horrible. You don't deserve to get in. Like, remember the LaMelo Ball conversations, right? Where I think both Yarby, you and I had LaMelo Ball as an All Star, but most people were like, "No way that guy should be in the All Star game with this team as bad as it is." Right? So and it's All Star game, right? It's for the fans. I'm sure there's probably a lot of fans that would love to see Michael Porter Jr. in the All Star game. potentially. So, like I said, I think he's in the discussion, right? Just because of the level he's playing at. Like I said, it's just another one of those scenarios where I can't 100% say he's going to get in. But I could see, like I said, injury replacements, like you mentioned with some of those guys, they may not want to play in the All-Star game. That's how I think he could probably get in. But he's played at a level individually where I think he can easily be a first-time All-Star.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Like, I don't know if he really like legitimately gets in, right? Like clean, through the votes or whatever. But if he's a injury replacement guy, I don't think I would be too mad at that, right? The numbers speak for themselves. He has been balling, right? It's a brand new system for him, brand new opportunity, and he has the green light. So, kind of, I don't want to say expected. Like, I think we expected him to put up numbers, but I don't think we expected this good of efficiency, right? And it seems like it kind of translates to some wins, and that's why, like you said, contenders are kind of calling for him.
Yeah. I guess we might as well mention it since we're talking about him right now. So, in terms of the rumors about him, right, there's been a handful of teams that have been mentioned as potential Michael Porter Jr. places, right? Jake Fisher, Mark Stein, and others, right? The three main destinations that have been reported in terms of level of interest is Golden State Warriors, Detroit Pistons, and then Milwaukee Bucks. So, of those three teams, which destination do we like the most for him?
I mean, part of me wants to say the Warriors, even though they're eternally cooked. But I like Detroit, honestly, even though I would prefer that Detroit kind of just stands pat and, continues to thug out games as they've done, right? They built that team from the ground freaking up. And I think that's how, they're going to probably, continue to translate to wins. But I don't know. He could really help them because, shooting, and spacing the floor, that could really help. And I think, if you give Cade a solid knockdown shooter, just another one, right, that the sky's the limit for that team. And, I think he could help them out for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I made a video on this already. I put the two destinations I think make sense is Warriors and Detroit. I think Warriors are his second option. I think they mainly try to go after Anthony Davis. If they don't get Anthony Davis, they go after Michael Porter Jr. Just because they have the pieces, they can flip a Kuminga, maybe a Moses Moody and a draft pick. And Brooklyn might like that because he's a younger player. You can build it over there what they got. But I like Detroit because it adds more shooting. I think that's one of their biggest weaknesses. Having Duren and Asor Thompson in your starting lineup, two players that just can't spread the floor, is a huge concern for me. And that's going to play a factor in the playoffs. So having a player like Michael Porter Jr., he's definitely an upgrade over Tobias Harris. The only problem is like, are you flipping Tobias and like, would Brooklyn even want that? I always said early in the season, I said, because you just don't want Tobias Harris and MPJ on your team. Like, that's a Shaq and a fool right there. Like, let's be for real. But I said for personally, if I'm in Brooklyn, I'm keeping Michael Porter Jr. I'm liking what they're doing over there. I'm not trading Michael Porter Jr. unless I'm getting 2 first-round picks because you could do that right now. I think you keep the young. I think you keep the young guys, but the young guys always need vets around them. That's why I think you keep a Claxton. I think you keep MPJ. It's good to have vets. Star players like I'm not gonna call him star player, but good players are not always meant to get traded. He's having fun. MPJ won a championship, got a max contract. He shouldn't be playing basketball. He's in New York. He's living his best life. There's no expectations for him, but just go out there and hoop and play with Cam Thomas, who they don't pass the ball together. They just go out there and play basketball for fun and make millions of dollars, right? I personally, if I'm MPJ, I don't want to get traded. I'm fine where I'm at, right? I already been at the top. We won championships. Like, we done that, right? Like, I don't want to, like, I think this is a year, like, obviously you can't tell Brooklyn, I don't want to be traded. It's not how it works. But I think you don't trade MPJ for 2 first-round picks. I think you sell high on him. And I think the same thing with Pelicans. You don't sell high on Sadiq, but you sell high on Sadiq Bey too. Random, I know, but just saying.
Same thought process. I understand.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd say for MPJ, I would say probably I like the Detroit one too, just in terms of, like you said, just the 3-point shooting. Warriors, of course, they could use some offense too, right? They've not been very good on the offensive end, like Top Notch mentioned, right? Like they could flip Kuminga, they could flip those young players. The thing, from what I understand in terms of the reporting that I read, is that the Nets don't really want Kuminga, right? So that would probably involve like a third team where it's like, oh, Kaminga goes to Sacramento, who seems to eternally want him, and then maybe you give the picks or whatever to Brooklyn, right? How many picks is Golden State willing to give up, right? Compared to a Detroit, right? Because with Golden State, right, since they're closer to the end of the line, are they going to be willing to give up those post Steph draft picks, right? Compared to Detroit, like Yarby mentioned, are they going to be willing to give up the draft picks, right? Because like you said, building from the ground up, do you really want to rush it? Because MPJ was kind of a name that I thought about back when people were talking about marketing him, where I'm like, well, you probably don't have to give up as much to get MPJ as you might have to get marketing, right? Like you could get away, I think, if you're Detroit, you could probably get away with like, a first, and then it's like Tobias Harris. I don't even think you'd have to give up Ivy. I think you could just give up matching contracts, Harris, maybe like Karis LeVert, something like that. And then that's how you do it, right? And then if you're Detroit, it's like you basically gave up two guys, who are fine players, right? But you got a real good player in MPJ, and if he can play at that level for the Pistons, then that kind of elevates them to another tier where it's like, yeah, they're the 1 seed right now, but I don't necessarily know how confident people are in them winning the Eastern Conference, right? Because just in the postseason, you still have the questions and concerns about they're very reliant on Cade Cunningham, and that's not his fault. It's just how the roster is constructed, where you don't really have another great secondary option as a ball handler, right? It's kind of supposed to be Ivy, but he's just not quite physically there in terms of the injury, right? And then they lost Shooter, placed him with LeVert, different type of player. So, I like the Detroit fit, but I can't lie. The Warriors one, I would like to see. I'm just curious I'm still skeptical about whether or not they're actually going to get back a lot for Kaminga, because that's the part where I'm just a little bit skeptical about, where it's like I think they would need a third team to get the players that they would want, because whatever team they send Kaminga to, I don't think they're going to get that player, right? I think it's going to be like you send Kaminga to the third team he wants to go to, then you get the other players from another team. And then they have the contracts issue too. Do they want to put Draymond in there? Do they want to put Butler in there? I don't think so. I think it'll probably be, most of the other contracts, Buddy Hield, Kaminga, whatever. So I guess, other honorable mentions, because there are guys where it's like Josh Giddey or like a Reeves, they could be all-stars, but they're hurt. So they may not play enough games at this point where they're probably not going to get in at this point. Maybe they're like, I don't know, honorary injury replacements or whatever. I don't know. But those are guys where they may have missed the boat in terms of like the timing of their injuries. Is there anyone else that we're leaving out? Like because I know Top Notch, I think you mentioned this maybe the last time we recorded, right? Like Con Knipple. Like, is he like a sneaky all-star pick to you? Like, I don't think he'll probably get in, but he has been playing really well.
Listen,
and it is in the East.
If Colin Kneppel makes it, LaMelo Ball should make it.
I don't think he'll get in. It's just a matter of like, is he like one of those sneaky potential? Oh, a bunch of guys aren't playing in the All-Star game. Could he be on the list? I don't think he will, but he has been really good.
I think he'd be like a third option. Like, you know how there's injury things? Say if that player gets injured, then he gets in type stuff, right? Because he is hooping. He is their best player. He's better than Brandon Miller, better than Melo Ball. Like, he's their future at this point. But it's interesting, right? Like, if you want to have fun, sure, throw him in there. But, Adam Silver never wants to have fun. He wants to throw BS All-Star weekends and think it's fun and stuff like that. It's like All-Star game is whack. Everything else is whack. There's nothing fun besides, like, the three-point contest because, like, people are actually out there competing. The dunk contest is whack. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
So, you want to throw him there? Sure, right? Let's have a one-on-one contest. Let's see who's the better teammate. One-on-one, LaMelo Ball versus Colin Kneppel, right? Let's just do some stuff. Let's have Kyrie Irving versus Curry on ones. You know what I mean? Like, let's have Russ versus John Wall in ones, right? We all know who's gonna walk out with that. But it'd be tough for sure.
Yeah.
What about Chet? Did y'all talk about Chet?
That's a really good one because
he should be there, bro.
When you look at Oklahoma City, they're 30-5. Usually teams with that type of record, it's usually very unlikely that they're going to have one All-Star. J-Dub, his is interesting because he missed so many games to begin the season,
right.
So I don't necessarily know if he gets in, but I think based off of the amount of games that, because Chet's been pretty healthy this year, right? Mm-hmm. How many games has he played this season? I think he's played,
30.
29? So he's only missed like 30? Okay, so he's only missed like 5-6 games.
Yep.
So 18 a game, 8 rebounds, just under 2 blocks, 57 from the field and 39% from three.
So
Give me
Yeah,
Chet,
I,
bro.
I mean, I think he's going to get in. Like I
Chet's
said,
in.
he won't be a starter, but he'll be another guy where because of the record and because of his level of production on that team, he's gonna. I think he'll get in. He'll get in. What do we think?
I mean, if you throw Chet in there, I mean, like Duran has the same amount of numbers, right? Right. Like I guess the numbers are very identical. Do you know what the thing with Chet is?
Oh
He's a
boy.
very good player. Don't get me wrong. Second, third best player on the team. I'm just kind of stuck on how Chet was supposed to be generational. And what? No, it's a real thing.
In high school.
I'm stuck because typical seven. Well, why isn't it? It needs to carry over. But listen, bro. When I see 7-footers, I'm thinking of Wemby's and stuff like that. And like Chet, just like he's goofy to me. He's just goofy to me. Like he's goofy. Like he should be. I think he should be better than what he is because he has all the talent in the world. If you think like he has all the talent in the world, he's just goofy. You know what I mean? But he's an all-star. That's a good one, Yarby. We didn't think about it at all. Definitely gonna put that on my list for sure. First-time all-star is good for him.
Yeah. That's a great one, I think, just because of the record and just like in terms of like I said, when you have a record like that, it's like Cleveland last year, right? Where they won 60 whatever games. I don't even remember what their record was by the All-Star game, but they had like 3 guys on the All-Star
Yeah.
team in there, right?
Mhm.
So like that one I think makes a lot of sense. Is AJ Mitchell an All-Star? Probably not, but but,
If
but
AJ Mitchell's an all-star, bro, then Russell Westbrook's an all-star, bro. Like,
Oh my gosh, bro. Why are
yeah.
we
So
talking about that?
is there anyone else that we're leaving out? Because it's just because I feel like when you look around like a lot of these other teams, I feel like it's kind of tough. What about Houston? Like, so you've been following Houston, right? Because that was your pick to win the title. Do you think Thompson? You think he's a first time All Star? Do you think he's played at a level where he could get in there?
He's
Because
close.
Sengun, I think, already was, right? So he was
Yeah.
in there last year, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah,
So
I don't think Thompson's there yet. He's close, but I think they don't get more than 2 all-stars, right? I think it's going to be Katie and Shingun.
mhm.
But I don't think Amit. There's no way. Like he's been good, right? Like don't get me wrong, he's been tenacious. He gets to the rim. Obviously, the 3-point shot is still completely non-existent. Defensively, we already know what the guy is, but I think he needs to be a little bit more well-rounded on the offensive end for him to get into the All-Star game. But his numbers, to be fair, are kind of screaming All-Star. I just think there's better, I guess, guards out there.
Right. And the thing that's helping them now is Houston's now in the top 3 in the Western Conference. So that's
Exactly.
where I think, and they're not that far behind, right? Because I think the Spurs, I think they're like 2.5 games behind the Spurs. Spurs, I think, just lost while we were recording
Yeah.
to Portland. So like they're inching closer. And that's kind of like when you mentioned Chet for Oklahoma City, I'm like, oh, that kind of made me think maybe some of these other teams that are towards the top have first time All Stars because like the Knicks won't have any first time All Stars because Brunson and Towns
Mm-hmm.
already were All Stars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you know, is there anyone on the Knicks, right? Like because other people have mentioned like 5 guys, or whatever, or like OG Anunoby or Bridges. Like, do you think either of those guys could get in there?
No, I there's no shot. I think it's probably Brunson in Towns because I think at that point they're probably going to make room for the other people, right? You have to make room for the Norman Powells. You have to make room for other players. So I think
Mhm.
from that perspective, you're only probably going to see Towns and Brunson, which I think is enough. I don't think the other guys are really playing at that all-star level.
to be fair, Cash didn't be an all-star this year, but they're gonna throw him in there. He's been awful.
Awful?
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah,
to be fair, he hadn't
yeah.
been that as good as last year, I think. But
Now I'm being nice. I'm being harsh. He's not awful, but he's just not that second guy that I thought he would be this year. Like, he hasn't played that well. I've been talking to Knicks fans, and they're like, dude, he's just so inconsistent. Like, there's a game where he's giving you 12, the next game he's giving you 20, and the next game's giving you 8. Like, that's not good enough. Like, if he's gonna do that in the postseason, they're gonna get bounced out. I'm just saying.
on top of the
And
foul
some of that
trouble,
could be, and some of that could just be a result of the offensive scheme changing a little bit, right? Where it's like, okay, now the ball's spread out a little bit more. So maybe, the shot attempts are down. He's not been as efficient as he was last year, right? Because he's down to like 48 from the field, I think 36 or so from 3. And, sometimes when you take jump shots, right? Like there's going to be a level of variance in terms of your efficiency. But yeah, like I don't think the other Knicks guys will get in. I mean, like maybe, but I don't think they will. Like, and that's why I'm kind of curious about the first time All-Star conversations. Is there anyone else? Because just like looking around, um, I'm wondering if there's any players or teams that we might have missed out on, right? Because like Toronto, like Ingram and Barnes have already been All-Stars, right? So
You want to
they're
you want
not first time All-Stars.
you want to get juicy?
Yeah.
What do you got?
Phoenix Suns.
What, like
Dylan
Dylan
Brooks.
Brooks?
Oh my god. I can't.
You want to get
see it.
juicy?
I can't see that. Like numbers
I don't
wise,
think he'll get it.
maybe.
I don't think he'll get in as a first-time All-Star. I mean, like he's obviously played very well, and Phoenix is, currently what, like the 7th seed. So like that's a good pick, but I just think with all the talent in there, I don't see him getting in. I think
All right,
that's
Christopher.
Yeah.
Let me. I'm gonna tell you why he's gonna get in. Watch
All
this. Chet and Shea. Wemby. I don't have. They might put Fox in there. You know what? They throw Fox in there. They're gonna throw Wemby and Fox.
All right.
So yeah,
Houston
Wemby and
gets
Fox. Huh?
Houston gets 2.
Yep. Houston gets 2. So you get Denver. They get 2, but they're gonna get 1. That makes sense. They're gonna
Right.
get Jamal Murray. Jokic is not playing.
Right.
The Lakers realistically should only get 1, but somehow they're gonna get 2 because LeBron's gonna make the All-Star game, which I just don't like.
I agree.
Right? So now you have 2, 4, you have 6, 7, you have 9 right now, right? How much make the team?
Like
12?
12.
12. Minnesota, yeah, it's Minnesota. Okay, so now Minnesota, you got Ant. Does Randall make it?
Randall?
He
I don't
should.
think so.
He
I don't
should,
know
but
if
he's
he
not
does.
going to. He should, but
He
he's not
should.
Okay.
I think he could, but I don't think he will.
Okay, fair. Okay, so now that's okay. Let's just minus Randall. Then you got Curry. That's 11. Let's go 11 at Curry.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you look at Portland, Memphis, Clippers, oh damn, yeah, he's not making it because you got Kawhi Leonard and Harden.
Yeah, like you see, like you see what I mean?
Yeah, like I just thought about it. You got Harden and Kawhi. You got Steph.
Yeah, you see
And
what I
then
mean?
Randall's still a question mark. And then Phoenix, you still got Devin Booker.
Right.
So it's like, it's going to be tough. But I'm just saying, that's why I said you want to get juicy. Like,
Right.
Because the problem
played
is
at that level, though. I'll give
right.
him
The
that.
problem is that you have teams that are in the lower tier that have players that are playing so well that it's so hard to just say they're not all-stars. And also the names, right? Like I think it's going to be hard for people to be like James Harden shouldn't be an all-star, even though the Clippers they've won 6 in a row, so you got to give them credit, right? But they're still 12 and 21. Now, what is their record once the voting closes, right? In like a few weeks or so, that could change. But that's going to be the problem, right? So I don't know. What about Butler? Does he get in?
No, hell no.
You don't think so?
No. But you know what I think who gets in? This team just upsetted the bum Rockets, the Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks just upsetted the Rockets 110-104. And I think this is the only rookie that should honestly get in to All-Star Weekend. It's Cooper Flag. Cooper Flag needs to be an All-Star Weekend. I don't care what anybody says. He's going to be there, that's technically, but he needs to be playing for the All-Star team. And I think there's a way he is.
That would be so
Call me
fire.
crazy.
Yeah.
Call me
I
crazy.
don't think he gets in, though.
I think he does.
I mean, what, he's
But
averaging
how,
like 20?
though? Like,
He's
that's a
averaging
lot.
20?
He's going to have – there's a lot of names he's going to have to beat out. I don't think he's –
that's fine. Because Chris, because I named a lot of pieces, but LeBron probably doesn't want to play.
Right, and that's the other factor. There's going to be guys that won't play.
Yes, right? LeBron probably doesn't want to play. Or maybe he does because it's his last one, right? Maybe, right? Kawhi Leonard, Harden, maybe they play, right? I can see Harden playing. Maybe Kawhi not. Curry, I see him playing.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So then it's just like, dude, there's going to be people that don't play in this. I know for a fact there's going to be a lot of new people. And honestly, you want Cooper Flag there. Simple.
Yeah. What about Booker? I mean, I know this is really first-time All-Star discussions. Now we're talking about just All-Stars as a whole, so it's going off the rails. But, like, I mean, you think Booker will get in?
He should.
He
I
should.
think, yeah, because like that's the thing is like they're a playoff team right now,
Yeah,
and
he's
I know
back,
he's not
bro.
shooting well from three, but like he's putting up all-star level numbers. So I mean that's the tough part, where it's like Flag, like has he played really well? Yes, 100%. It's just I think like some of the names in terms of who he's gonna have to beat to get in, like he's gonna have to bank on some guys just saying I'm not playing. Like I know Jimmy Butler was like, "Don't vote for me, guys. Like I want to take a vacation while the
He,
All-Star game is going." Even though like his numbers have been pretty good, but just in general, I don't know. That'll be a hard one. I think like, I would be surprised if Flag gets in unless guys don't play. I don't think I don't think he'll get in outright. But could he be like a replacement for somebody? He could, but I feel like there's going to be other guys that are going to be a little bit higher on the ladder.
okay, this is the last one because I feel like this topic has been long, but
Yeah.
this one's more realistic, and I'm gonna tell you why. VJ Edscombe has a better chance of making the All-Star game than Cooper Flag, just because of the fact how the East is so bad. Indiana has no All-Stars, Wizards have no All-Stars, Nets have no All-Stars, Hornets have no All-Stars, Milwaukee has one All-Star, Atlanta has one All-Star, Chicago has no All-Stars, Miami has one All-Star, Orlando, they don't have no All-Stars, Cleveland has one All-Star, and then it's like you go back up. Detroit has two All-Stars, Knicks have two All-Stars, Celtics have one All-Star, Toronto might have one or two. Then you go to Philly. Is it Tyrese Maxey, Edgecombe? Like he has a better chance than Flag. I'm just saying.
Alex Sarr is an all-star, by the way.
They're not gonna vote him in, but
I don't think he'll get voted in.
Dude, just give
He's
him
been
I'm
really
just
good,
saying.
but I don't think he'll get.
Give him
He's
a
been really
chance.
good. He's been really good, but I don't think he's gonna get. I don't think he's gonna get in there.
We'll see.
All right, we're getting goofy now. All right, we're just getting
Yeah.
goofy now.
So we're
I'm getting
goofy because
goofy.
we're bringing Alex Sarr up. Got it.
No. I'm getting goofy with Dylan Brooks and stuff. I'm just saying.
Yeah. All right. So, moving on. Guess we might as well talk about a topic that for me is not great because I picked them to win the championship. The Denver Nuggets. The last time we recorded, Jokic was healthy. Since then, now he's not. He hyperextended his knee. He's going to be out for quite some time. They've had a few games where they've been down 4 starters. Now, luckily for them, by the time this episode comes out, I believe Aaron Gordon and Christian Brown are getting ready to come back. But obviously, you're still going to be without Jokic. They lost Valanciunas, the backup center, right, as well. He's going to be out at least a month. So they've been basically cursed this year. So the question for them is, can they survive with Jokic being out for at least a few weeks? Because we don't know. Some people have kind of speculated that like maybe his injury isn't that bad, so like maybe he's comes back earlier than expected. Like say he's reevaluated in I don't know like 4 weeks. Maybe they think he comes back in 4 weeks. I don't know, but you're basically expecting him to be without him for like at least probably 10 plus games, right? So the question is, can they survive? Could they go 500? Could they go 400, right? Could they win enough games that they don't drop into the play-in? Because right now, they're 23-11. They lost to the Cavs the other night in the fourth quarter. And they're, like 3 games ahead of Phoenix, who's in the play-in right now. So are they going to fall in the play-in by the time Jokic is back, I guess is the question.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Minnesota leapfrogs them easily.
Yeah, this is
even the Lakers too. I think could potentially leapfrog them.
So what do you think?
Yeah, no, this is not even a discussion. I mean, if they had Jonas, maybe they had a chance because Jonas is the first game he played, he had 17 and 9, and even with him, it's still tough. But not having 4-year starters, Cam Johnson, Christian Brown, Aaron Gordon, it's going to be tough. I mean, they fought last game against Toronto, just couldn't finish it out. The defense is mainly
Toronto
gonna
was the
be
one they won. Cleveland was the one they lost.
Oh yeah, that one. I mixed it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the defense is mainly going to focus on Jamal Murray. I mean, I think that's why he's like 12 for 28 last game. But they're just not. It's unfortunate, but the thing is, they're going to be the toughest playing team, and even if they're not a playing team, they're so good enough where they can get back to top 6. So this is one of the teams I'm just not worried about, not one bit. Now,
Yeah,
if this injury was near the playoffs, oh
Mm.
yeah. But this is not. We're not even halfway yet.
Yeah, this is one where it's tough because in general, like when you win the championship, you don't usually have like this amount of bad luck in terms of injuries. Like you might have a stretch where like you miss a player, or two for a little bit, right? Like OKC lost Chet for like he played like 50 games last year or something, right? Like so he missed a lot of time last year. So we've seen teams miss maybe a guy or two for stretches, but not basically like everybody, right? And that's the part that's really difficult. So let's say it's like, the next 3 weeks or so, right? Like, so their next string of games: Brooklyn, Philly, Boston, Atlanta, Milwaukee, New Orleans, Dallas, Washington, Charlotte, Lakers, Wizards, Bucks, Grizzlies, Pistons, and then Nets. And then they close out the month with the Clippers. So it's kind of a mix where there's some winnable games in there where you're playing some bad teams, right? Like you could beat New Orleans, you could beat Washington, you could beat Charlotte, you could beat what? What? You
They're
didn't like
not.
that I said
They're they're
Washington?
not. They're not beating Washington. Respectfully, like last year we swept them. FYI.
Yeah,
Yo,
that did happen, and I do remember that. That was the Alex Sarr game. But like just in general, like there are winnable games here. So like I think there's enough games where like you could go 500, but I do feel like that the play-in is probably inevitable, unless some of these guys come back a little earlier than expected. Because yeah, Gordon and Brown I think are coming back within the next game or so. But I don't necessarily. But Cam Johnson's going to be out for a while. He may not be back before Jokic comes back. Honestly,
well, Cam
who knows?
Johnson, shit.
And
There you go.
And that's
Said
the
it here
wild
first.
one where I remember when they made the trade. I remember Yarby, you and I were kind of talking about because I was saying like, all right, maybe the thought process is like Johnson may have the higher floor, but Porter has the higher ceiling, where it's just like, his best games are really, really good, right? Where we know the strengths, right? 6'10", super high release, really good athlete, good rebounder. But I think they more so made the trade to have a little bit more options within their roster, right? Where it's like you have more, you wouldn't have been able to have the depth that they have now
That was
if
the
they
point.
didn't make that move, right? Like, and that's the tough part because, like, I think you can make the case that this is the best roster that Jokic has had, right? But unfortunately, we're not going to see it for a while because of all the injuries. But like Top Notch said, if they fall into the play-in, right, like, and they're healthy, that automatically becomes the team that you don't want to see in the first round if you're a higher seed, right? Like, if it's, like Spurs, Nuggets first round, or, like Rockets, Nuggets first round, or like, or something like that, like, that might be tough. I'm not saying that those teams are going to 100% lose. It's just a matter of you don't want to play them in the first round. But at the very least, you could make the case that for some of these teams, this is almost the perfect case scenario where it's like, because like I said, what you don't want is you don't want Denver to be a top 3 seed, because that means that whoever isn't OKC or Denver probably has to play through both of those teams and beat both of those teams to get out of the West. That would be a very tough task. But if they fall and they're in the 4 or 5 spot, or they fall to, the play-in and they're like 8 or whatever, then that's when it becomes, a really tricky situation. So hopefully those other guys can come back soon, and then it won't be quite as cooked. But they're gonna have to adjust to life without Jokic, which they've not really had to do, and they still don't really have a center. This is where Daron Holmes comes into play. This is where, hey, you drafted this guy. I think I see what you're talking about, Yarby. Like when you said you think he's more of a 4 than a 5, like just in general, right?
And who
Like in
is this?
terms of what Holmes.
Oh, Daron Holmes.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
when I see him play.
Yeah.
Now that I've actually seen him play for a little bit more, it's like, all right, I see what he's talking about
Yep.
in terms of like a little bit more of a 4 than a 5. So they really don't have a center right
They
now, other
don't.
than what, like Zeke Naji? Is he even a center? I mean,
Is he
I don't
even
even know what
good?
he is. No.
All right then.
So yeah, so that's the tough part. So it feels like they're probably headed towards the plane because, like I said, you look at the standings, it's very close, right? Like it's not like they're, and this is where earlier in the season they lost like a number of games, like right at the end where it's like you just blew it, right? Like opening night for them, they lost to Golden State, and then they lost in overtime. I think they lost early in the season to Portland, right? Just like they lost recently to Dallas, right, by like 1 point in the fourth quarter where Peyton Watson missed like a wide open shot. So like they've had a number of games where if you had won that game, and now every team can say that, right? Like we'd have a little bit more of a cushion for ourselves where now you have no margin for error, where it's like, like I said, the Phoenix Suns have 3 more losses than Denver. So if Denver loses like 3 in a row, 4 in a row, and Phoenix manages to win a couple games, boom, then you're right in the plan, and that's where things are going to get kind of scary, I think, for some of these teams. But I do wonder, like, do they end up still finishing in the top 6? I think as long as Jokic can come back relatively soon, they can finish in the top 6, but I think it becomes a lot trickier now for them. And it's funny, right? Because they're one of the teams that you kind of looked at as a safe bet to be healthy, at least in terms of Jokic, where it's like as long as he's there, you're going to win 50 plus games. And this is like the first serious injury where he's actually going to miss a significant amount of time. I don't think he's ever played less than 69 or 70 games in a season, right? And that includes like the shortened seasons, right? Where it's not 70 plus games. I think it's like 72, but just kind of crazy where it's like, it seems like nobody's safe from injury now. Even the guys that we looked at as Iron Men, right? Like Jason Tatum, Jokic, like boom, those guys are now hurt where it's like, who's left at this point? SGA? Is that it?
Yeah, pretty much, bro.
He might be the only Iron Man left at this point.
Yep.
Yeah, so I guess now for our last topic, right? We had one that Top Notch suggested, right? And we haven't heard it, so we don't really know what it's gonna be, right? But he's gonna bring it to us now, and he's gonna let us know what it's gonna be. So what do you got for us?
Ah, man, oh man. So just last night, Russell Westbrook is officially the highest scoring point guard in NBA history. But not only that, right? I feel like that's a cool accolade. Most points by a point guard in NBA history. So Russell Westbrook has 26,711. Oscar had 26,710. Curry's at 26,103. Chris Paul's at 23,000, and Dame's at 22,000. It's interesting because I didn't hear one point guard ever get brought up in this conversation, and John Wall. Okay. Another thing. Among point guards, Russell Westbrook is number 1 in points. He's number 5 in assists, number 1 in rebounds. Steals, he's 7th. Field goals made, he's number 1. Triple doubles, he's number 1. Double doubles, he is 3. And wins, he is 7. Not only that, MVP, 2-time scoring champ, 3-time assist champ, 9-time All-Star, 9-time All-NBA. And he's just one of the most unappreciated legends in the game. And I just want to give him a big shout out. If Russ, you ever come across this video, just want to say thank you. I have 3 posters, not 3 posters, I have 3 jerseys hung up currently looking at you right now. Sacramento, Denver, UCLA. I would never get the Wizards jersey because they're terrible. But
What the?
I really do appreciate you. And there's a lot of haters out here in the world, like Yarby, who just hate on you for no reason. But realistically, man, you're the GOAT. So I just wanted to throw that quick little thing in there real quick because that is a big thing. Like outside of trolling stuff, being the most points by point guard in NBA history made yesterday is pretty amazing for a player that people are saying Chris Paul is better than him, and Chris Paul is no longer on a basketball team. He can't even play basketball no more. And Russ is aging as well. No excuses, out there hooping every single night. So yeah.
Holy
Any thoughts
glaze.
and opinions on this? And no hating on this topic right now because this is just all positivity about the GOAT, number 0, number 4, number 18, whatever it is, greatest of all time.
Well, I guess. Well, do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
I'll go ahead. Holy glaze,
I go.
bro. Whoa.
I go.
That was I've never seen anything like that. I mean, I got a round of applause for that one. But on a serious note, I think you do have to respect the dude. He's a legend, right? And what he brings to the game and what he's, done for it as well, right? Especially at the point guard position. Pretty revolutionary. But, I think people have their gripes, right? I watched him kind of, I don't know, ruin a couple of my teams, right? In terms of like the Thunder and stuff. But, either way, it's fine, Shout out to him. He's a legend, right? But yeah, I mean, longevity is the thing, right? That's the new play, right? So shout out to him, bro.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, right? Where it's like, funny enough, I have a picture of him on my wall as well, right? Even though he played for my favorite team, the Lakers, right? And that didn't necessarily go all that great, right? But just in general, like you said, just the numbers that he's put up over the course of his career, and honestly, like the longevity piece is legit, right? In the sense of years ago when he first got that giant contract, right? I think right coming off the MVP year, right? Like people were like, man, by the time that contract is over, he's probably going to be done, right? Because I think the assumption is because of his athleticism, right? That was kind of the big part of his game. They're thinking, well, by the time he's like 35, 36, 37, right? There's just not going to be enough left in the tank to be able to stay around, and it's like he was able to stay around, right? And like he's even adjusted in the sense of like, you're no longer the guy that's putting up 28-8 or 20-10-10 every night, right? Like now he's kind of adjusted to where, yeah, he's in Sacramento, and he is starting, but we did see him for a few teams where it's like the role is dialed back and he's adjusting, and that's also part of what's kept him in the league, right? It took him a while to adjust to it, and not every star can necessarily do that because for a lot of stars, they kind of want to retire while they're still on top, right? Like most guys don't want to necessarily be like, oh, I'm gonna be a role player, right? Like say like take like a LeBron or a Durant or whomever, right? I don't think those guys will want to stick around if they're all of a sudden like 12 points a game, 20, 15, 20 minutes a night coming off the bench. I don't think that's gonna happen, right? Like so, but he's been doing that, right? So you got to give credit to that, right? Because there is a level of like he did have to learn, right? Because it took him getting moved, and kind of being in the spot where now he's not making a big max deal anymore, right? But he learned his lesson, so now he's in a good spot. So
But
shout out to him.
something. Not only that though, it's like let's be in a fantasy world real quick, right?
Boy.
Just very curious to see what's your opinion. If Russ goes wins a ring, where do you rank him with a championship?
Bottom 5.
So, I mean, that's okay.
No,
So without a
no,
ring,
on some real, if he wins a ring, I think you have to put him right under Curry.
Like number 2 or 3 or what?
Number 2.
Okay, I think that's a good point. I think then the question becomes, because you mentioned win a ring. I guess the question is like, say he wins a ring, right? How many people are going to look at it as like, oh, he wasn't the driver, now he's like kind of a role guy. It's not really his team. Does that factor in at all where it's like, getting a ring towards the end of the career? Or is it like, well, he has a ring over some other guys who didn't. So does that automatically vault him over some other guys, right?
Ring
Like
is a
that's
ring.
kind of like the question is, where does he rank right now? Right? Because like I think he's probably the point guard. If I had to guess, I think is probably the one where I think he is wildly ranked all across the board, depending on who you ask. Right? Like you don't see too many people say like Steph or like Magic like are way across the board. Most of them are like, oh yeah, this is like the best point guard or the second best point guard or whatever. But for a guy like Russ, I feel like depending on who you ask, you could have somebody say he's top 5, he's third or fourth or whatever, or you could have somebody say like he's not even top 10 because if you've we've all heard everybody's different opinions, and he's definitely one of those guys where he's got a wide range of views in terms of where he could be. So yeah, I'd say if he with the ring, he would be probably what third, fourth.
it. I think no matter what Russ does, if Russ wins a ring, he doesn't win a ring, he's gonna get criticized just because who Russ is. It's just the truth. You can make all the faces you want. It's the reality. What they're gonna say is what they're saying right now. Oh, he's on a bad team, that's why he's putting up good numbers. But they weren't saying that when he was in the postseason playing pretty damn well in that first round against the Clippers, right? They didn't say that when he was balling with Denver. He was like part of the reason why Denver stayed apart when Jamal Murray got out was because Jokic and Russ was doing the 2-man game at the time. Him and Aaron Gordon were hooping. So, I'm not going to talk too deep in it because I can have a whole hour podcast about Russ.
Right.
But at the end of the day, ring or no ring, his numbers, his resume backs it up for sure. No one cared about triple doubles until Russ broke it, and then no, people cared about triple doubles, and then when Russ broke it, no one cares about it because Russ broke it. It's just it is what it is. That's true. People get triple doubles now, they're gonna be like, oh, it's just a triple double. But when Russ did it, he didn't just do it 1 season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons. Like he was doing it every single year, pretty much for that stretch. But overall, though, I appreciate you. I love Russ. We all got goats, right? We all got goats, and that's who my goat is.
Yeah, and that's always kind of the question, like in terms of like with a lot of players, right? Where it's like even like a Harden or somebody else who doesn't have a ring, like where do they rank if they get a ring, or is it too late? Where it's like even if they get one, people aren't gonna regard them as like the number one option or whatever on the team, so it doesn't really matter. That's kind of the tough part to be in. So that's kind of where that's kind of where do you draw a line, and then also like team accomplishments versus individual accomplishments, right? Because there are guys where their team accomplishments were probably much stronger than their individual accomplishments. So that's kind of the question there. So
That shit trash. If you don't throw that shit away, man, you know what's crazy? You know what's crazy? I think if James Harden would win a ring this year, people would have him ranked over D Wade. Call me crazy. James Harden wins a championship this season with this fraud pickup Clippers team. They'll say he's better than D Wade. Nah, seriously, like because that's impressive for a team how bad that team is, and for you to carry that team because he would be the number one, number two option over there and carrying them. I think you go into conversations of him being better than D Wade. There's already conversations about it, which I wouldn't go that far. Like we're not gonna go that far in my opinion, but there's already conversations about it. So
Yeah, I can
yeah,
see
know?
it happening.
yeah, that's the thing is that and that's the tough part. Say like for a Harden, where before we got on this podcast, we were talking about circumstance, right? Where it's like say with Harden, imagine if they had beaten the Warriors in 2018, right? Like I mean, it's just it's kind of wild, right? Where it's like there's a lot of what if scenarios in the NBA, and that could be in and of itself its own podcast that we could probably do like in the summer or off season or whatever, right? But I guess now we might as well close it out and do what we do with. We got a bevy of comments to close out this episode from our last short, and some of us have already read them, some of us have not. So I'm gonna read them out. And we're gonna react to them in real time. So we got one from Togark9848. Give the Spurs their respect, like they aren't 3-0 against OKC. This was a running theme. So we did a short about the Christmas games and how they went. It was a running theme. There were a lot of comments about Oklahoma City. So do you want me to go through all of them, or do you want to just do it one at a time?
Fire them off, bro. They all say
All
the
right.
same
So
stupid thing.
so Togark already read that one. Then Duck Dude 14. You're not gonna be OKC C 3 times in a row and say that OKC is still better. So you're not gonna see. So I guess like they're saying like, oh, you're not gonna beat OKC 3 times in a row and then say that OKC is still better. Then Cool Guy 3. Spurs better than OKC. If you lose 3 times in a row, then you just can't beat them, bro. Spurs better. And then Six Pencil 7. If OKC is the best, then how did they lose to the Spurs 3 times? And one of them being by 20. So this was a running theme that we got in our comments, where it was a
seems
lot
like
of
they
comments about Oklahoma City losing to the Spurs 3 times.
Bro, I'm gonna just say this one time and one time only. Oklahoma City is 30 and freaking 5. They're the best team in the league, straight up. Yes, the Spurs beat them, but I don't give a crap. It's the regular season. It means absolutely nothing to me, and everything at the same time. But more on the nothing part, right? I need to see these teams face off in the postseason. I don't even know if that's gonna happen. Oklahoma City's a proven team. They won a championship. They have the best player in the league, Shea. What more do you want from this team, right? And it's like they have a target on their back, so I get it. That's why people are headhunting like this, and it's crazy. But I just don't understand like where the glaze of San Antonio came from. They haven't proven to me that they can do anything except win a few regular season games. Enough said.
because I think you're missing a point. Yeah, it's regular season games, but they did beat them in a play-in. Not the play-in. They did beat them in the that play-in cup thing, and that is technically a playoff game. Technically
What?
a playoff game.
No.
Oh, the NBA Cup. He's talking about the NBA Cup.
NBA
Yeah.
Cup is not a playing or not
It's
not a
technically
playoff game.
it's somewhat there's pressure, right? Because there's more pressure than the regular season,
It don't matter,
right? There's
bro.
money on the line. No, there's money on the line because that money is play money for them. It's not like their money
So the
coming
best
out
team
their
in the
check.
league. So hold on, the best team in the league is the Spurs.
No.
So who's the best team in the league?
The Knicks,
No.
of course, because they won the NBA Cup.
No. What I'm saying is right. You got to give the Spurs the respect
I do.
of them. Yeah, but you got to give them respect for beating OKC 3 times. But what I'm saying is right for your statement said they haven't done anything. Yeah, they haven't. You're right. But technically, they won those cup games, those are big games. Just because some people don't like them, those are somewhat still big games, though. That's all I'm saying, right? We haven't seen this team in the playoffs because we're going to see them soon. We just haven't seen them, right? I get your point, but I think you still got to give them respect, and I still think OKC doesn't want to see San Antonio.
I think it really comes down to how much do you buy that what the Spurs have put together to beat OKC in the regular season? How much do you buy that that's going to work in the postseason, right? Because offensively, the Spurs role players, right, played much better than OKC's role players, right? Like there's been some guys in OKC that offensively have not shot the ball well at all this year, right? Like Lou Dort, it's been rough, just let's just say. And he's not the only one. And that's really what it comes down to. As Yarby and I've said many times, we have seen teams. We saw the Suns beat the tar out of the Minnesota Timberwolves in the regular season 4-0, and then in the playoffs they got smoked, got wiped off the floor. It was bad. It was rough. It was embarrassing. Now does that mean that that's what's going to happen in the playoffs with the Spurs? Maybe not. Maybe they can beat the Thunder. It's just I need to see them in the postseason what it looks like when it's a close game, and I'm going to need to see Champagny, or I know Harrison Barnes, won the championship, right? But he's a guy where, some people didn't love his playoff performances in the past, right? Where it's like, I need to see those guys knock down a big shot. I'll need to see Dylan Harper. What does he look like in the playoffs, or like a Stephon Castle? And they could be really good, right? Because OKC, there was a time when they were in the same spot, right? Where they were the 1 seed. They had the best record in the Western Conference. They took care of the Pelicans in the first round. Then they played Dallas, and they did not win that series. We picked OKC to win that series. They did not. Some other guys like Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren had bad offensive performances. They were getting out hustled, out physicaled by Dallas's players. That's the part where I'm, a little bit not worried, but that's the part where I need to see more from the Spurs. Like obviously they've already shot above our expectations for the regular season. I just want to see what it looks like in the playoffs, right? Like say they have to face one of those play-in teams, right? Like 7, 8. Let's take 9 and 10 out of the equation, right? Let's say it's Phoenix, Golden State. Are you 100% sure that they're going to beat those teams? They could.
Yes.
But if it comes down to it, because if you want to talk regular season, I mean, the Warriors beat the Spurs in San Antonio in back-to-back games. Steph had, almost 50 points in both games.
That's my
He was the
point.
best player on the floor. And that could get dark for them potentially because that's a team that does have some playoff experience. And I'm not saying that they're 100% going to beat the Spurs. It's just a matter of, there is a thing where I think experience does play a factor. And obviously OKC got it done last year. So it's not like it's impossible for the Spurs. They could
let me say
ball out
something.
and smoke everybody.
Let me
But
say
that's
something
where
real
I'm
quick.
not sold just yet.
I don't trust OKC right now, to be honest with you. I don't trust their role players. I really don't. Their role players have been awful this year. There's a difference between last year and this year. They're not the same role players how they were last year. Now that can change, but they can't shoot. If you can't shoot, you are not going to win games in the playoffs. You can get away with it in the regular season. The regular season, cool. In the playoff scenario, you can foul bait all you want. First of all, your second best player in J-Dub, who was amazing in the playoffs last year, has not been as good this year. Let's get that straight. Isaiah Hartenstein, their starting lineup with Hartenstein and J-Dub has not been working out this year. Typically, last year was working out. So they're a different team. Yes, their record is still 30-5, but when the playoffs comes, like you said, that's where it matters. I think it's going to be a little bit different. If your role players can't hit shots, they ain't going nowhere. If they hit shots, they'll win the championship easily because they have the talent. But role players define this team, and if Caruso's going 1 for 10, and if Aaron Wiggins is going 0 for 6, and Casey Wallace can't shoot, and AJ Mitchell forgets how to play basketball, like this team, they're not gonna go as far as what people think. And I'm saying this for a dude that just a couple weeks ago I said, oh, no one can beat them. And then you start watching them and start witnessing that, like, they got some flaws. There's some flaws on this team, even though they're better than some teams. There are some flaws on the team that I don't know if they addressed. You know what I mean? Like, we'll see.
Yeah. And that is a great point, right? Where it's like there is a line where like last year, right? Like you had OKC in the playoffs, they did not shoot the ball very well. And that's part of the reason why those series went longer than they probably would have had they had better offensive outing. So that is a good point where it's like, yeah, if you defensively, like the Spurs, the formula is you got Wemby in the middle, take away SGA's mid-range game, force, some of these guys that you don't trust to knock down threes, to take a bunch of threes. That's a good formula. Then offensively, smash them in the paint, right, with their athletic guards that can get downhill. So that is the formula. It's like I said, I just want to see in the playoffs when it's crunch time, are those role players for the Spurs going to knock down big shots? Because there are guys, while they do have some vets that have been in some big playoff games, they also have some guys who've not been in playoff games. And, that's what I want to see. And I guess the question is like, and this is kind of probably like the end of the discussion. Like, if you're the 2 seed, whoever you are, like, let's assume it's either San Antonio or Houston, right? Because, Denver's hurt, and I feel like it may be a little bit tricky for some of these other teams. Because even like Minnesota has weird games where they just lose to the Nets or lose to whomever. But like, would you be worried about any of these playing teams?
No.
Okay.
I mean, if I'm the Spurs, maybe, but outside of them, no. I'm not worried about
Okay.
anybody else.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about. Would Phoenix, would they give the Spurs a scare in the playoffs? Like if it's if that's the 2-7 matchup,
No,
like
I
could it
think
go 6?
The Warriors could potentially just because Steph, he's just I don't know,
Right.
a wild factor,
Yeah.
wild card.
That's the one where I think and I'm not saying the Spurs are gonna lose that series, but I could see a scenario where some of the role players don't show up, Steph goes bananas, and then they just somehow pull up.
I saw it happen last year with
Yeah.
Houston.
Yeah.
There's just some things I'm just not willing to go against anymore, and that's one of them is Steph
Yeah.
Curry. So
Yeah. So, but that like I said, that was the main focus of the comments in all of our shorts. And, if you want to join in on any of these discussions, as you know, right, you just go to @the OBT podcast for more content and updates. We'll also close out with the poll like we usually do from IG, best Christmas game. And we got a 3-way tie, right, between Spurs Thunder, Wolves Nuggets, Lakers Rockets, which was interesting, right? So Knicks Cavs was considered the worst one, and then we had a 3-way tie between the other ones. Now I would have thought it would have been Wolves Nuggets, then Knicks Cavs, or a 2-way tie between those two, and then the other ones are below, right? Because the other ones were kind of beat downs. But what do you got? What do you guys think?
What idiot decided to pick the freaking Rockets and Lakers game as the best Christmas game?
I didn't have enough space to put Warriors Mavs, but I didn't think anybody would pick that one. So
Like, what are we doing, guys? Oh,
yes, yeah. But like I said, if you want to join in @the OBT podcast, also don't forget to like and subscribe. Happy New Year! We appreciate all the support, and we'll see you next episode. Thanks for watching.